Hello, dear students, and welcome to the second unit dedicated to Croatian theatre. So, the focal point of our lesson will be an overview of the history of theatre life in the city of Rijeka and in the city of Pula. The city of Rijeka is the third largest city in Croatia after Zagreb and Split. It is the main political and cultural capital of Primorje-Gorski Kotar County. It is also one of the most important Croatian seaports on the Adriatic Sea. Throughout the past, its good geographical position made it alluring for foreign powers that fought over the city, turning it into their military and administrative base, often imposing their language as the official language in the city, as it was the case with the Italian language in the past, which often led to changes of dominant languages and demographics in the city. For example, from the second half of the 19th and until the beginning of the 20th century, the Italian community was the biggest one. The Croatian community was the second biggest community in the city of Rijeka at that time. Nowadays, its multicultural environment, strong cultural and artistic scene makes Rijeka one of the most vibrant and urban centers in Croatia. Let us now move to the overview of the theatre development in the city of Rijeka. The first traces and beginnings of theatrical life in Croatia in general are closely connected with the religious drama written and performed in the Middle Ages. The work that belongs to the group of religious drama in Croatia and that represents the peak of religious drama production in Croatia is Muka Spasitelja našega, The Passion of Our Savior from the 16th century. The play was written in the region of Croatian Littoral, and some researchers believe that it was written in the city of Rijeka. In the 17th century, the Jesuits started to arrive to Croatia, and they opened schools in the towns and cities where they arrived, in Osijek, Varaždin, Požega, and also in Rijeka. Part of the education program they offered included also staging theatre performances based on religious dramas. This was amateur theatre, but still it played an important role in creating the path and bringing theatre closer to the people in Croatia at that time. Theatre life in Rijeka got in full swing at the beginning of the 19th century due to the activities and eagerness of Andrija Ljudevit Adamić, who was a merchant and a distinguished entrepreneur from Rijeka in the early industrial period. He was also a great lover of theatre and was involved in erecting a theatre building in Rijeka. The theatre building was situated where the old military guard quarters were based. The theatre had a neoclassical front view, a big auditorium with 4 box circles and a relatively small stage. The theatre building was opened in 1805 and it was the center of the theatre life in Rijeka for the next 80 years. Adamić was the owner of the building, and he also rented the theatre to Italian and sometimes also to German traveling theatre and opera companies who staged their performances in the Italian or German language. In 1845, almost 20 years after Adamić's death, the city government came into the possession of the theatre building, which means the government bought it and renamed it into Teatro Civico, People's Theatre. The theatre building was in use until 1883, when it was pulled down due to its poor condition. The local government had also decided to build a new theatre building because theatrical events, even though connected mainly with the Italian language and Italian visiting theatre and opera professionals, were great in number, and they attracted their audiences. Therefore, a new theatre building on the Urmeni Square was erected. It was designed by 2 famous Viennese architects, Ferdinand Fellner and Hermann Hellman. The new theatre house that is still in use and serves as the main theatre house in Rijeka today, the home of the Croatian National Theatre in Rijeka, was officially opened in 1885 with the performance of Verdi's opera Aida and Ponchielli's opera La Gioconda. The theatre building was something all visitors and guests could marvel at. It was a grand masterpiece of architecture of that time, containing beautiful statues and impressive ornaments created by the distinguished Italian sculptor August Benvenuti from Venice. The ceiling of the newly opened theatre building was painted by the famous Viennese painters such as Franz Mach, Gustav and Ernest Klimt. This newly opened theatre was called Teatro Comunale or Municipality Theatre and from 1913 it was renamed to Teatro Comunale Verdi, after one of the greatest Italian opera composers. This theatre, however, was open only to Italian theatre and opera companies. The theatre administration was doing its best to host the most eminent Italian performers in order to improve and secure a good status of their theatre. The very first time when the Croatian language was spoken on the stage of this theatre was only after 1945. Until that time, theatre performances given in the Croatian language could be attended only in smaller towns around Rijeka, which were not under the Italian jurisdiction at that time. Due to the political and historical situation, it was completely impossible to stage a theatre performance in the Croatian language in Rijeka in the 19th century. Theatre amateurs of Croatian background were connected and active on smaller scales and within Croatian literary clubs, libraries, and Croatian cultural organizations, especially after 1914. Throughout its history, the theatre in Rijeka changed its name and owners several times. In 1945, the building Teatro Comunale Verdi was restored and renamed to the National Theatre in Rijeka, following the example of other national theatrical institutions in the country. Due to the fact that there was Italian minority still in Rijeka, it was agreed that performances in both languages, Croatian and Italian, would be performed in this theatre. From that time on, the theatre has housed regular Croatian drama, Croatian opera with ballet, and Italian drama ensembles. The first performance in the liberated city of Rijeka, given in the Croatian language, was Dubravka by Ivan Gundulić, a great Croatian Baroque playwright and poet from Dubrovnik. The piece was staged in 1946. Soon afterwards, the first opera in the Croatian language was performed. It was Nikola Šubić Zrinski by Ivan Zajc. On September the 22nd, 1953, the theatre was renamed to the National Theatre of Ivan Plemeniti Zajc. In the year 1994, during the Homeland War in Croatia, the theatre got its present name, the Croatian National Theatre of Ivan Plemeniti Zajc in Rijeka. Nowadays, the Croatian National Theatre of Ivan Plemeniti Zajc in Rijeka is one of the leading theatre houses in Croatia that stages Croatian and foreign authors' classical and contemporary literary works, operas and ballets. Apart from that, the theatre is also known for its experimental approach to theatre, trying out new artistic ways how to reach out to its audience. Let us now take a look at theatrical life and activities in the biggest city of Istria, the city of Pula, which is situated at the southern tip of the Istria Peninsula. It is known for its rich history, numerous artifacts and buildings from the ancient Roman times, such as the Pula Arena, one of the best preserved Roman amphitheaters. Pula is also one of the most popular tourist destinations of the northern Croatian coast. Similar to the city of Rijeka, Pula, which has been inhabited since the prehistoric period, was also ruled by different foreign powers in the past. The presence of foreign element also influenced the theatre life and dictated the changes in demographics and language dominance in Pula. The Italian influences on the administrative and linguistic level were the most significant ones in Pula. Pula and Istria, the region Istria, are still today multicultural and bilingual. Both names for the city, Pula and Pola, are its official names today. The Croatian version of the city's name, Pula, was introduced only after the Second World War. Up to then, the city's name was Pula. Let us now return to the theatre life of Pula. The theatre life in Pula started in the 19th century and was just like in Rijeka at that time, under a great influence from Italy, with Italian theatre and opera companies coming to Pula to give their performances in the Italian language in Teatro Nuovo, the new theatre. There was no Croatian professional theatre at that time in Pula, and the attempts to create theatre in the Croatian language were connected with theatre amateurs who performed their theatre pieces for rather small audience in non-theatrical spaces. Apart from these attempts, the beginning of the 20th century in Pula was also marked by visiting theatre companies from Zagreb and Serbia who would give their performances in their respective languages. It should be mentioned here that between 1914 and 1918, the theater life in Pula was dominated by Italian and German traveling opera companies who performed mostly operettas for the soldiers of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy based in Pula. After 1918, there were no Croatian performances in Pula at all. Performances in the Croatian language were given again after Pula was liberated from the Italian occupation in 1949. The first theater building erected in Pula was Teatro Nuovo, the new theater, that had its official opening ceremony in 1854, and it was, just like many other theater buildings in other cities along the Croatian coast, open only for Italian traveling theater and opera companies. The following theater building erected in Pula was Politeama Ciscuti, which was built thanks to the distinguished citizen and entrepreneur Pietro Ciscuti, who also financed the erection of a small theater building, Teatro Nuovo, the new theater. Due to the fact that the Teatro Nuovo became too small for the rapid overall growth of Pula, Ciscuti decided to fully finance the erection of a new theater building in the 1870s that was designed by a young Italian architect from Trieste, Ruggero Berlam, and it could host around 800 spectators. The theater consisted of the pit, 2 box circles, a balcony, and a gallery where the audience could stand. The theater was opened twice, in 1880 and fully equipped in 1881. At that time, this was a theater that had the biggest auditorium in comparison to other theaters in other cities in Croatia. Apart from that, the size of its proscenium arch is still the biggest one among all other theaters in Croatia. This theater building did not serve only for theatrical purposes. It did not have its own regular theater or opera companies, so when there were no theatrical performances and when no musical events were organized there, the theater served as a cinema, dance space. It hosted charity events, political events, circus and cabaret performances, and many other spectacles and tournaments. In the newly formed state, the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, the theater was renamed to National Theatre in Pula in 1948. Its first theatrical production was the play Dundo Mare, Uncle Mare, by Marin Držić in 1949. In October 1956, the theater building was reconstructed and renewed, and the municipality administration decided to establish a regular theater company and artistic direction of the theater, which would serve as the main theater house not only in Pula but in the entire region. The theater was renamed once again, this time to the Istria National Theatre. The theater staged foreign and Croatian authors' dramatic works as well as operettas. This theater building was closed down in 1970 due to its poor condition, and in 1971 the Istria National Theatre ceased to exist as an institution. The theater was opened again in 1989 with the performance of the Croatian opera Eros onog svijeta, Ero the Joker by Jakov Gotovac. The performance was given by the Croatian National Theatre in Zagreb. Even though the newly reconstructed and renewed theatre got a larger stage space, the latest technical equipment, more space for actors and administration, and even though it hosted theatre performances and other events such as movie nights, concerts, and art exhibitions, it did not have its regular theatre company. When the Republic of Croatia was formed in the early 1990s, the theatre was renamed again to the Istria National Theatre, theatre house in Pula, in 1994. The first theatre performance produced entirely by the Istria National Theatre was Otvarač za konzerve, Can Opener, by Victor Larue, and stage director was Robert Raponja, in 1996. The theatre was renamed again in 2004 to the Istria National Theatre, City Theatre of Pula, and since 2007 it has had its own regular theatre company. The theatre repertoire consists of foreign and Croatian authors, contemporary and classical works. Thank you for your attention, and in order to expand your knowledge on Croatian theatre in Rijeka and Pula, you can also read the Word document titled Croatian Theatre Rijeka, Croatian Littoral and Pula, Istria, which contains more detailed information on this lesson. Thank you very much for your attention, and I truly hope you enjoy this lesson and that you have learned something new about Croatian theatre in Rijeka and Pula.